So we are here with Professor Siebert, Professor of Religion and Society at Western Michigan University, and we are here to commemorate Ayatollah Sheikh Nimr Baqir Al-Nimr. And Professor, would you please um, answer me this question? What can you tell me about Sheikh Nimr? What do you understand of Sheikh Nimr? What is he? Who was Sheikh Nimr? Especially from a political view and from a religion point of view.
Right. Well, we were, of course, very shaken by the news when we heard about his execution and about the execution of 46 other resistance people. And it is very difficult for us from this distance to know what has happened and what the reasons are behind all this. But when we look at the Near Eastern situation, we always start with a fundamental dichotomy between the religious and the secular, between the sacred and the profane, and the Sheikh was obviously on the religious side, but then there is on the other side there is the secular, and this dichotomy between the religious and the secular divides also the religious communities in themselves. So between Sunnis and Shiites and other groups, because some religious groups are more open toward the West and toward modernity and toward enlightenment, and other groups are more for identity and tradition. And so we also have on the secular side, we also have a division where some secular people are more open for religion and listen to it, and where other groups are very hostile and rejecting and atheistic as well. So we have a fundamental division which started in the West between the religious and the secular, which then brought splits in the religious groups. And we see the death of the Sheikh in this context of a very holy man who was very deeply religious and was not very well known for a long time for us in the West. So it was only in recent years, since maybe 2000 or so, that we became aware of his existence. And we were particularly impressed by his non-violent approach to religious questions and political questions as well. And these two cannot really be separated. They are closely connected, the religious and the political. So his Shiite faith and his resistance to the government in Saudi Arabia. So this is how we try to find some sense in the whole Near Eastern situation, and we see the Sheikh in this context.
I see. So you're saying that Sheikh Nimr was calling for justice for everybody, to unite people, but his murder will divide the two sects of Saudi Arabia and the Middle East.
They are in a certain sense already divided in terms of the sectarian lines, but then he was also not only non-violent, but he was also for the poor. So he was on the side of the poor classes. So we have then the class system in which he was involved, and he protested in the name also of the poor and in the name of social justice, which is the very core of the Islamic faith.
I see. Well, mentioning and considering these great values in Sheikh Nimr, do you think he should be taken as a role model for the people in the Middle East, or the people in the whole world, especially the religious people, especially the clerics?
Yeah, I think he has become a martyr through the execution, and I think as a martyr he will certainly become a role model, first of all for the Shiite community, and then also I think far beyond that, I think even for Christians and for Jews as well, like Mahatma Gandhi or so, and others who are transcending their own religious community and become an ideal or a role model for people of different faith as well.
Okay, so I can see that you regret his murder and his killing. Do you condemn this terrorist action against Sheikh Nimr?
So from the Western point of view, we have the question of the legitimacy of this execution in terms of the Sharia law, about Islamic law, but we also have problems in terms of the human rights declarations, which would be on the secular side. So from both sides we have the question if the trial was adequate, if the trial was legitimate, if the lawyers had entrance in time, if they were informed well, if they could defend him well, and so on. So these are all legal questions in terms of law procedures, court procedures, and so on. And we think that something went wrong there, and so we condemn already the methodology by which the whole issue was dealt with by the courts, by the court.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Professor, when Sheikh Nimr was murdered, 47 people were also murdered at the same day. But from Qatif itself, 4 people, including Sheikh Nimr, were murdered. Muhammad Shiyukh, Muhammad Rubah, Ali Rubah, sorry, and Muhammad Swaymal were murdered with Sheikh Nimr at that day, and they were kids. Yet the Saudi regime are planning to murder 3 more people who were minors at the time of the arrest. They are sentenced to death by beheading and crucifixion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what would the Bible, or what would the Christianity as a religion, or what would you say about that?
First of all, as far as minors are concerned and trials, there is again the question of administration of justice, to what extent this is adequate to the Islamic law tradition, and to what extent it is adequate to the human rights declarations in the West in terms of the Western Enlightenment. And so I am not entirely clear what this procedure and what these executions, what they are supposed to do in terms of the government in Saudi Arabia, if it should repress certain people, if it should repress the freedom of speech,
Mm-hmm.
which would be, of course, in Western terms, would be hard to take. I'm not entirely sure what the weaknesses are of the government, so that it has to take such extreme measures, because it's not only those 47 there. In the same year, close to 150 people have been executed. As far as the crucifixion is concerned, that violates, of course, certain sentiments of the Christian community. That is obvious.
Okay, speaking about the crucifixion, I'm speaking about Ali Nimr, who is the nephew of Sheikh Nimr. Ali Nimr is one of the 3 kids who are still facing the sentence of death by beheading and crucifixion. Ali Nimr, Abdullah Zahir, and also Dawood Marhoon. Now, do you think the Saudi regime is trying to take revenge of Sheikh Nimr by killing his nephew?
Yeah, but first of all, as far as revenge is concerned, the eye for eye, tooth for tooth, there, of course, the Christian community has great problems with that, because the founder of Christianity tried to break that talion, or the talion of eye for eye, tooth for tooth, leg for leg, and so on and so on. So that is an issue for Christianity. As far as Islam is concerned, it denies the crucifixion of Jesus as such, but it is for the Christian community, wherever somebody uses this torture instrument, that is particularly painful for the Christian community. Yeah, it's a torture, extreme torture instrument. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. Professor, Sheikh Nimr was murdered, and his family did not receive any certificate of death. They did not receive the body back. The government just basically didn't give the body to his family to be buried in his hometown. his hometown and his between his family and friends. Is there any kind of justification for such an action?
Yeah, it shows, that the administration of justice in this area, is somehow emotional, that it is not steered by laws. The difference between justice and revenge
Mm-hmm.
is that you just don't go out and kill somebody, but that you have a judge, that you have a court, that you have a defense.
That's why you have court system.
Yes, and that you also respect the rights of the one whom you find guilty,
I see.
and that you do not humiliate the one whom you find guilty.
Of course.
And I think not to do that, not to respect the family and give the body to the family and so on, that this is a deficiency in the administration of justice. I think not only in the light of modern enlightened people, but that it is also in the light of the Islamic law,
Yes,
the Sharia law.
exactly. Yeah. Professor, do you see any similarities between this sentence and the way they are sentencing people, the way they are murdering people, with any kind of any other religion, any other organization, any other side of the world, or any other any kind of institution or entity would do such thing?
You mean similarity between ISIS or the Islamic State
For example, yes.
and who else?
And the sentence or the
What happened in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, the methodology is certainly very similar, but I think, one, of course, Sunnis, well, so there is a Sunni background as far as ISIS is concerned. And as far as all these groups in the Near East is concerned, I always want to emphasize the grievances which these people have. I don't think that one should simply degrade them. I think they all are human beings, and we should treat them as such, and therefore we should listen to Saudi Arabia, to the government, and to ISIS and so on, what their grievances are and why they are doing those things. So I think we should pay attention to the theology which is behind the government and which is behind ISIS as well. So one cannot simply say this is an ideology or whatever. One should take the theology of all these groups seriously, which motivate them and don't prevent them from doing those horrible things to their own people.
I see. Yes. Well, that was our interview. Thanks to Professor Siebert, Religion and Society, professor at Western Michigan University. Thank you for watching.